Lizzie Gutteridge from the Shawm Shop, and today I'm going to talk to you about our Chalumeaux. The Chalumeaux is an ancestor of the clarinet. It has a single reed, and we know about this instrument partly from written sources and then from examples that are still around from the Baroque era. So in about 1700 there was an instrument maker called Denner who apparently added keys to an existing instrument to create the Baroque Chalumeaux, and we have examples of those in museums. We don't have any examples of the keyless instrument that existed before that, but we make a keyless Chalumeaux on the basis that we know there was something like that out there at the time, but it is a little bit conjectural. There is mention of an instrument called a Chalumeaux in the 16th century in France and in the 17th century across Europe, and this would have been the keyless version. Both the Baroque instrument and presumably the one that came before it would have had a hand-carved mouthpiece that was part of the instrument built in one piece of wood. And quite possibly, like the Baroque instrument, the reed on that would have been on the front, which is a slightly different way of forming an embouchure to the modern way. Ours use modern clarinet mouthpieces. These are E-flat clarinet mouthpieces, which are a bit smaller than the usual B-flat ones. And that fits with the narrower bore of this slightly shorter instrument, obviously. One advantage of that, of course, is that you can choose which way round you want to play it. So if you want to play it with the reed on the front, that's entirely possible, or you can put it on the back and play with a modern embouchure. Our Chalumeaux use recorder fingering, or fingering that's very close to recorder fingering. So this one is a soprano Chalumeaux in C, the bottom note is a C, and it has two whole tone steps from C to D to E, and then from there on it's chromatic for the rest of the instrument using forked fingerings and so on. I mention this because there are also makers out there who are using two other kinds of fingering systems. So some people are using what I would describe as a penny whistle or bagpipe fingering system, where you literally take off one finger at a time, and that will give you the major scale. And there are also instruments out there with a finger hole for your little finger of your left hand, so that you've got one more hole down the front. One of the reasons that they do that is to extend the range of the instrument, because with this system that we have, this instrument has a range of a ninth, so that's an octave plus one note. In this case, from middle C up to the D that you play with your thumb off. And that's fairly normal amongst Renaissance woodwind instruments. There are several other instruments where that would be the case. For example, the crumb horn is probably one of the best known. And it's for that reason that the keys were added in the later models to extend the range. Having said it's got a range of a ninth, you can play in the second register. It's just that the bottom note of the second register is nowhere near the top note of the first one, so there's a gap between. I'll give you a bit of a demo. So I got up to D, and then I had to jump to G, G, A, B, C in the second register. On the later instrument with the keys, that gap is filled in by having three different notes you can play, one with the front key, one with the back, and one with both, and then you jump to the second register. So that extends the range that you can usefully use to 2 octaves. This one is a keyed alto, and I've got a keyed soprano here as well. The two instruments that I'm going to demonstrate for you today by playing a bit of a tune on each is the soprano in C that I've just been showing you, and then the alto in F. These are the two most popular models that we make. These are at 440, but we do also make other sizes, including a G alto, and we do also provide these at 415 if that's what you like. So that and the keys, there are lots of different options to go for potentially. The sound of each instrument is fairly similar, however. I should probably point out that the soprano that I'm going to play is in C, like I said. It's the size of a descant recorder, but the pitch is an octave lower than that. It's more the pitch of a tenor recorder or a soprano Shawm. And the reason for that is that that's what happens when you combine a reed and a straight or cylindrical bore. In other words, the bore is the same width all the way down the instrument. And this is also true of the crumb horn. It's why it overblows at a 12th, why you've got that gap between the registers and why those keys become necessary, which is why the modern clarinet has so much metalwork on it to fill in those gaps. Okay, I'm going to play one of my favourite tunes for playing on the Chalumeaux. I play a lot of Playford on the Chalumeaux, mid-17th century English dance tunes. In fact, I've done a couple of books of these called Tunes for Chalumeaux and Duets for Chalumeaux, which combines the C and the F. Lots of the Playford tunes fit on these instruments very nicely, and this one is called Goddesses. tune on the F alto, which likewise is the size of a treble recorder but has the pitch or range of a bass recorder or an alto shawm.